I'm speaking to Andrew Finden. Andrew, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yep. So I'm Andrew, and I'm an opera singer based in Germany. So I live in Karlsruhe in southwest Germany. But I was born, grew up in Warwick, and studied in Toowoomba and in Sydney and in London before I ended up in Germany. And I've been here about 10 years now.
Yeah, okay. So what kind of work are you doing?
Well, at the moment, it's all dried up. It's a bit tough for artists and musicians at the moment, but I'm a full-time or professional opera singer. I do a little bit of concert work, but most of my work is in the theatre doing opera, and that ranges from contemporary 21st century opera right through to early Baroque.
Now, you're a Christian as well, someone who trusts in Jesus and who follows Jesus. So can you just tell us what inspired you as a Christian to be a professional musician and to set your whole life and career down that track?
Well, the church is one of the reasons I got into music, and I think that's probably true for a lot of Christian musicians. You know, growing up in the church, there was always a chance to play music, to sing. I think that's a really great nurturing environment for that. And then as I started getting lessons and discovering that actually I had a talent that I could use, the passion for the music just sort of grew within me. It was just something that I guess I've always wanted to do, and realizing that we have a creative God who's put these desires, these passions to create within us, that it reflects his nature as a creator. A really encouraging way of just really reflecting who God is and what he does in the world.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, how is it that God's creativity is a reality in your artistry? Look, you've just been talking about that already, but can you tell us a bit more? Are you conscious of God's creativity kind of flowing through you as you rehearse and as you perform on stage?
That's a really interesting question, because it's probably an easier question for someone who is a direct creator to answer. So someone who's writing music, perhaps. As someone who is performing, we're usually taking someone else's creations and interpreting them. So we don't necessarily have any control over the content per se. On a broader level, as storytellers in the theatre, we do get to tell those stories of the human condition. And sometimes the things we're showing are not Christian. They're not necessarily what you'll find in the Christian bookstores. If you think of some of the great operatic characters like Don Giovanni, I mean, he's a womanizer and a murderer. And you think, okay, well, how can I as a Christian portray this guy? I sort of think, well, actually, let's look at what's in the Bible. It's not all clean. It's not all light and shiny. There's darkness, and it really shows the human condition. And I think if I was to play Don Giovanni, I wouldn't want people to go away thinking, oh, what a great guy. I think my goal would be to portray him in such a way that people might go away thinking, oh, how am I living? How's that reflecting on my life?
Out of interest, what's it like to be a Christian and part of the opera scene in Europe?
It can be difficult. I think in general, the theatre world, perhaps in contrast to the orchestral world, the theatre world is generally very secular and often quite hostile to faith as a whole. There's lots of people who in industry who I'm friends with and who know I'm a Christian, and there's no problem there. But I think when you start looking at a lot of the productions, I guess, and some of the attitudes, it's very, very anti-religious at times and anti-faith, and that can be a bit of a struggle sometimes,
and also an opportunity sometimes.
Yeah, of course.
We're thinking tonight about how we can work as working for the Lord rather than for ourselves or for money or for pleasing people. What advice would you give to young artists, be it music or visual or other kinds of art like film and gaming and the like? What advice would you give to those guys about how they can be preparing to work for the Lord?
There's two things I'd like to say that. And the first is stay connected in your local church. That's really vitally important. Just being connected with people who are helping you follow Jesus and people who are going to keep you accountable. We talked about how it is a difficult industry and there is going to be a lot of pressure and temptation. And I think having people who love you and who who are looking out for you and helping you follow Jesus is so important. Using your gifts for the church as well. Christians who make art don't have to make exclusively Christian art, art for the church. But I think it is important to give back. I like to think of it as a bit of a tithe when I do music for the church. I really enjoy music for my church congregation as well. And for me, that's really important to have the professional side and then the side of where I'm just bringing my gifts to bear on the church as well. And the second thing I would say is understand who you are in Jesus. So that's the gospel has just had such a helpful impact. I think the real danger for artists and performers is that we get a lot of our self-worth from our work, and it's really easy then to get discouraged when you don't get the applause that you were expecting, or when the review comes in and they weren't so pleased with your performance or something. And you can get into really unhealthy sort of mindsets and cycles of thinking if you're basing your value and your self-worth on that. Every time you go out on the stage, you're thinking, you know what, I'm a child of God. I belong to Jesus, and he's proud of me. I have value. Whatever happens here tonight is actually not of any significance in terms of who I am and my value. And I think I just find that really freeing to then go out and give a performance without any considerations of whether people are liking it or not. You can just be really free to give the performance, and then I think that glorifies God as well.
Oh, mate, that is so helpful. Thanks so much for sharing that with us tonight, Andrew. And thanks for your time.